Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chats with Changemakers, brought to you by Discovery. I'm your host, Luke, a ninth grader in Michigan who was first involved with Discovery through its middle and high school Future City program. As you may know, I'll be chatting with STEM professionals from different fields, giving you a front row seat on how STEM is building a better tomorrow and how you guys can contribute. So, for today's episode, we will be learning from a CEO and innovator who's working on advancing the way we learn today. Let's welcome Khalouk Shahbander. Khalouk is a project manager, along with the founder and CEO of Silicon Valley Learning Lab, a company that is dedicated to transforming the way we learn today through digital learning, through transforming education through cutting-edge digital learning experiences. Khalouk, welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Luke. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
It's great to have you here. So, with all said and done, let's get this episode started. For our first question, can you tell us more about your company and what inspired you to start a business in digital learning?
So Silicon Valley Learning Lab is an education consulting and technology firm. We started in the wake of COVID-19 when there was a lot of changes that were happening in the education system and in the way we learn overall. So as we know, were a lot of changes that happened all over the world at the time, and um, the education system overall, there were transformations that were occurring, in Silicon Valley Learning Lab sought to capitalize on some of those innovations that were available, that were present at the time. So we had started off as a one-person solo venture of just me, myself, and I, and at the time decided to grow beyond that to pursue other education technology initiatives.
And so, with a job like this, it takes a lot of preparation and a lot of working hard. As you said, you worked alone when you started this. So, is this something you always wanted to work in, which is technology and education, or is there something else that you maybe started off with, which led you to this trail?
So my path has been windy, as is the case for most people. I remember growing up, I wanted to be a physician. In undergrad, I was pre-med, and shifted to working in the education space after graduating. So I worked for Arizona State University's Innovation Unit at Plus, where they serve global communities and global stakeholders, and develop new technologies. So that really inspired me to head into the education technology space. At the time, I was also um, teaching LSAT, so to law school students, and saw an opportunity to head more in that direction and design new technologies using what I had learned. So um, it was a little unexpected, but um, my experience at Arizona State University was an impetus that motivated me to head in that direction.
And so, this next question, I'd say it applies to me because when I'm older, I'd want to go into something like engineering or project management because I like the leadership roles that comes with both of them, along with like
Mhm.
inspirations like you or my uncle who both work in project management. So, what is
Mhm.
project management, and how do you use it and work as a CEO?
Project management is a really diverse community. It's a diverse profession and practice. So that applies to any many different industries, from construction to technology and the arts. In my specific field, I studied project management, applied project management within the field of education. So that meant um, designing new um, education programs. A lot of communication is required, organization, scheduling, ensuring that projects are completed on time. And what project management, what it allows you to do is use different tools and strategies to ensure the success of a project and to ensure that all individuals involved are happy and feel supported, including your team members as well as any clients that you might be working with.
And so, with this meaning of project management, I'm sure it connects to a project that a lot of the people in Discovery do, which is Future City, a competition I competed in middle school. And so that
Mhm.
has a lot of project management as you're working together as a team to get something done. So, what is the hardest part about leading a project from start to finish?
That's a really great question. There are a lot of different changes that happen throughout the duration of a project. So sometimes we think about projects in terms of their life cycle, and there are a lot of changes that occur. Sometimes a client might want something to be done differently, and so you might have to consider the pros and cons of um, making those changes. And then there's communication that has to be done internally within a team, and then externally to provide updates to everyone involved. So really managing the changes that are required to ensure a successful project and a realistic vision is probably one of the biggest challenges when it comes to project management and executing on a project.
And so connecting back to like useful information for people working in projects like Future City, what tools or
Mhm.
strategies help you and your team stay on track?
So with it depends on the project, but there are mindsets, so certain principles that you can use, like servant leadership. So if you're the project manager on a project, you will be thinking about the best ways that you can remove roadblocks from your for your teammates. So thinking ahead, thinking about in a few weeks from now, what are some challenges that might occur, and how could I act proactively to help support my teammates? Um, and then there are also um, different tools and artifacts, so documents that we use to keep us organized. So you might have a project charter, which tells you what the project is about, who's involved, what risks there might be. So these types of documents help keep everyone on the same page, keep the project organized, and between the different mindsets and principles that you use, and then the documents that you develop, together they help to ensure a successful project.
And so I can already see like a complex daily life that you have with all of these different documents you have to go through in like your daily job. So break down what a typical day at work looks like.
So, I remember back when I was at Arizona State University. This is several years back. I was working with designers, so graphic designers and video editors, as well as translators. Some of our projects were for Arabic speaking communities. And so we were creating education programs in both Arabic and English. This meant, if you were developing a new video or graphic, you had to think about um, what the audience, Arabic speaking audience, and might be thinking about, what their cultural needs, what their essentially creating programs for your unique audience. And so I worked with designers, education experts, technologists, and it really depends based on the industry. But in the education industry, or in the education technology industry, you're working alongside a what we sometimes call a cross-functional team. So you have individuals who fill different functions, different roles, from design to technology to education, and you're all working together to bring to life the project.
And so that's really cool because project management, you're working with all of these different groups of people who may literally speak different languages, like you said, whether it's Arabic, or they might be better at math, engineering, architecture, or have everything combined, like in graphic design. So, can you break down some of the other fields you work with?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. If we're referring to, there's not only a mix of individuals with different backgrounds, like you said, technologists and designers, but there's also you're borrowing ways of thinking and principles across industries. So yes, you're working in the education industry, but you're also thinking from the lens of technology. So if you make certain changes on your education program, how might that impact things from a technology lens? In terms of a community building, so you're building a community, you're sharing resources. How might the things that you do impact the community? So you're definitely wearing different hats, and you're thinking across industries, and um, borrowing principles and strategies and ways of thinking from different industries.
And so with all of like the involvement of project management with your community and making it better with all these projects that you work with, what is one future trend or development in your field that excites you that will definitely make your community better or the future of the world better?
Mhm. Education is definitely becoming more immersive and it's also becoming more personalized. So AI is allowing us to create AI tutors who can adjust on the fly based on our learning needs, our requirements. We also have new technologies like virtual reality, which can make biology class more fun, can make medical school a lot more immersive and real world without the resources required um, to perform the very same type of learning. Um, and so between these different technologies, I think there's a lot of change that's happening for the best. And there's also a lot of exciting work being done in gamification. So you see Roblox, the work that they do there, making learning and Duolingo, learning not only just process, but something where you're tapping into your internal motivation to uh, do well in the learning process.
And that's really cool because those are like two apps I know a lot of people still use today, like especially people my age with Roblox and Duolingo, as Duolingo is something a lot of people I know have been working with like Spanish class. So that's really cool that all this implementation that comes from project management, people are using day to day in their daily lives. So, can you tell us what ways your job encourages you to be a change maker?
Mhm. The neat thing about the education industry and about being a project manager is that you're always working to serve the needs of others. So with the education industry, you're seeking to empower others via education programs and technologies. You're trying to create new resources that speak to different people's different learning styles. And so you're making the learning process more fun, you're making it more engaging, um, and you're making learning much more approachable. So um, I'd say, yeah, working in the education industry definitely allows you to leverage your project management, the different project management skills and strategies to make a change.
And so as you work in the education industry, I know a big main one as a project manager is you work in the project management industry. So can you tell us about your involvement at the Project Management Institute and what that means to you?
The Project Management Institute is a really wonderful community of scholars, leaders, project management professionals, all seeking further education. So there are certifications that you can pursue and learn more about. For example, how AI is applied within the project management profession. But then there's also a lot of volunteering that's done and collaboration that happens directly within the project management community. So I've been involved for about the past year and a half, a little bit more than I have been in the past. And I'm currently I serve on the AI Advisory Council for their Infinity technology, which they're working on some incredible technology to support project management professionals. So, um, in short, the PMI, there's a lot that's happening at Project Management Institute, and it's a wonderful community.
And so after you answering all those questions, it seems like you know a lot about project management as you've been in that field for a long time. So what strengths do you have that make you a good project manager?
Mhm. I would say that's a really great question because there are so many different aspects of different things that you think about when you're when you're in project management. One of the one something that is always present, something that's always common is curiosity. So asking good questions to understand project's requirements, for instance. Um, to understand a client's requirements or their needs, and also to define the root causes of a problem, for instance. So you're always asking why, you're always trying to define gray area and define unanswered questions, and curiosity can make a big difference with that.
And so, as a product manager, I know me because that's one of the things I might want to pursue in the future. An inspiration may be my uncle or you because you both have that job. So, did you have any mentors who inspired you to pursue the path of project management?
Definitely, definitely. Multiple people along the way taught me a lot about project management, even before I knew what project management was. Um, in particular, I've had um, mentors through my alma mater, through after graduating, who I learned a lot from while working. Also, individuals whom I met at Arizona State University that taught me a lot about project management and uh, motivated me to become more involved in the project management community and to pursue my own project management certification.
And I think a lot of things, a lot about these mentors is you can meet them in like any stage of life. It doesn't have to be like your parent from when you were younger or someone all the way in college. It could be someone just from yesterday who inspired you to change how you are for the better or for like the sake of the path of your career. So when you were in middle
Mhm.
school, what did you want to be when you grew up? Because that may be different from what you are right now.
Yeah. So my father's an engineer and my mother's in the education field, education and or special education field. And I, like a lot of people, didn't really know exactly what I wanted to be. I thought perhaps medicine would be a great field where you could make an impact, you could serve others. It was interesting. But as you learn more, your perspective shifts and it changes. And something that as I took more classes in undergrad and shadowed physicians and did research, I learned that perhaps instead of um, uh, being a physician within the medical field, perhaps I could help to address some of the challenges that the medical field faces today. So for a period of time, I thought law might be the best way to do that. And again, you experienced more and worked for Arizona State University. And after 3 years there and 2 years in the special education field, decided that education, specifically education technology, were where my interests were and how I could leverage my skills best.
And so, as you said, you had all these different experiences in high school, college, and even after college. So, were there any jobs or experiences you had when you were younger that helped you figure out what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I recall reaching out to, being interested in learning more about what it was like to be a physician in a hospital. And so I reached out to uh, a physician at the local Mayo Clinic and shadowed them. So I shadowed an emergency medicine physician. I shadowed a neurologist. I also was interested in neuroscience in high school and in research. So I messaged a whole bunch of researchers around the country to see if anyone would be interested in working with myself and um, thankfully, a few individuals were kind enough to respond back to me and to provide an opportunity that taught me a little bit more about research. So um, I think it's always important to reach out and to express your interest to others who are already in the position that you're seeking and to learn from their experiences. And I think those experiences that I had were very informative and provided a lot of guidance.
And that's a really good way to get your foot out of the door when it comes to fields like that. As you're getting
Mhm.
more like experience in contact with all these people, the more you message. And so, sure, you might not get a message back every single time, but the more you may, well, the more times you reach out, the higher chance of you getting the job or getting the experiences you want, which can lead you to whatever you want for yourself in the future. So, this leads to our next question, which is about failure, something that happens a lot within engineering or STEM fields, as you need to fail
Mhm.
to improve your design, as you have the whole engineer design process, which revolves around failure. And so that's why failure is not bad. It's beneficial for whatever project you're working on. So, can you tell us about a time you failed at something and what you learned from that experience?
Sure. So in project management, sometimes there are communication breakdowns. Other times there are you dream too big and you're aiming to do a little bit too much within a limited amount of time and resources. So in terms of the latter, the in terms of your scope being too big, when Silicon Valley Learning Lab first started, our goal was to gamify the way that pre-law students who wanted to go to law school, to gamify how they learn critical thinking skills and logical reasoning. And so we were working on mock-ups for our website and working on different strategies to gamify our platform. And we had to, after working for a few months altogether, had to rein things in and think in terms of practically what's the immediate next step, and to um, place gamification on the back burner, and think in terms of in terms of an MVP, a minimum viable product. What do our users really want? And to rein things in from gamification down to that. And really, the idea of scope creep or adding tools and features that might not be necessary happens all the time. But it's something that is always important to keep track of because it can happen so easily.
And so this is my favorite part of the episode because we get to learn who our change makers are outside of the work or things they've accomplished. So we get to learn who they are outside of work, the things they get to do for fun. So what is one thing you like to do for fun outside of work?
So I'm an Arizona native. I'm currently in Phoenix, Arizona, and I really enjoy hiking, especially when it's not the summer here. So right now, we're approaching the winter, and the weather's incredibly nice. So hiking is great. Anything outdoors like tennis is wonderful, and I really enjoy.
And so another thing, I know you taught us about how you're a CEO and you have a company, but is there anything else that you've done in your life that you're really proud of?
Yeah. I think it's really important to understand the perspectives of others, and to understand to be curious about different cultures and about the world. And so I've tried to learn about different cultures, whether that was taking classes in undergrad, focus on Arabic, for instance, Arabic. I studied Russian briefly. Um, did a service program to Jordan in the Middle East, and so I think it's important, even if within your own home and your own environment, to still be thinking in terms of being curious, to be curious about different cultures. So with anyone you meet, thinking about their background, how their perspective might be unique from your own, and so just in short, being curious about the world and trying to learn more about it through different ways. I'm proud of, and think is we'll always continue to try to do.
And so with all like this cultural understandings and like trying to learn the languages, is there any other skills that you haven't quite mastered yet, but you would like to?
Yeah, so I would say you're always learning more with project management. No matter how much time you spend, sometimes doing something there, you're always learning a little bit more. And I'll continue reading research articles, learning from peers and colleagues, and seeking to, trying to improve my own practice as a project manager.
And so then finally, for our last fun question, where's your favorite place you've traveled to?
I'd say Jordan. So in the Middle East, I did a service program in undergrad with my peers, and really, really enjoyed traveling there and learning about the culture.
And so this final question is really great for our viewers because it gives them a perspective on what they might be thinking when they're older. So, in thinking of the students joining us today and in the future, what is one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
to be open to the different enjoy the learning process for its own sake. Oftentimes, your perspective will change over time as you experience new things. And so sometimes we find ourselves predicting ahead and wanting a sense of stability by defining, what's coming up next and what we're going to be doing in 5, 10, 20 years from now. But oftentimes, the person that we are changes over time, and our interests change as well. So to enjoy the learning process for its own sake, and to um, enjoy changes along the way, and uh, yeah, just those two things.
So thank you for that. And it looks like that's all the questions we have time for today. Again, a big thank you, Khalouk, for joining us and being this month's changemaker. I know me and alongside our viewers have learned a lot.
Thank you, Luke. It's been wonderful speaking with you, and I hope the conversation's been informative.
We also want to thank the Project Management Institute Educational Foundation for partnering with us on today's episode. Another thanks goes to our STEM-driven students and viewers who tune in and fuel conversations just like this. And if you viewers want to learn more about project management, go to the careers section in Discovery's website at discovery.org. There, you can also check out more than 45 on-demand episodes of Chats with Changemakers. And alongside YouTube, you can access our brand new episode premiering in January. Speaking of our episodes, we want to give a big shout out to our chat sponsors for making the season possible. I'll see you next time, and always make sure to stay in tune and charge forward with Chats with Changemakers.